great to be here in Ashland. My presentations are usually around 10 to 13 hours. So, in 2 hours, I'm going to try to kind of crunch like a nutshell of the whole thing. So you're going to have to excuse the presentation in terms of me having to jump across slides and find them and go as I go. But, and you're going to have to take leaps of faith in what I'm saying because I don't have time to give you the details. But I'm going to just run you through a little bit of how things happened in my life that brought me to these conclusions and how the physics that I brought forward may create large changes in our understanding of our relationship to the universe, but as well in our understanding of technology and our relationship to our planet, which is crucial at this time. So I'm excited to be here and to present that to you. This really all started when I was 10 years old or so. Actually, it started when I was 7 with some esoteric experiences that made me believe and that had me interacting with all sorts of dimensions out there. And, so I was kind of a strange child. I didn't fit so well in the educational system. I had the worst time, and I was just getting kicked out. I mean, I'm the only person I know that got kicked out of preschool, and I just wasn't fitting in at all. And and so by the age of 10, I was already had moved from one school to the other, and when the teacher went to the blackboard and said, today we're gonna have our first lesson in geometry, and we're gonna learn about dimensions, I got really excited because I thought, oh my God, this is it. Finally, there's gonna be an adult that's gonna talk to me about all these other experiences I'm having, right? I was so disappointed. The teacher went to the blackboard and made a little dot. It's like that, and said, this dot represents dimension 0, and it doesn't exist. So already, I knew I was going to fail that class. I was in the back of the room. I was always closest to the door, and the teacher, and I wanted to put my hand up and, start asking questions, but I resisted. But I could see that even the other kids were puzzled, and you probably all went through that lesson, and it's really a fundamental lesson. And actually, this fundamental concept of dimensions and the axiom that comes from it really kind of maps out all of our current advanced mathematics and our current physics. Most of the physics of today, including quantum theory and relativistic equation, assume flat space and Euclidean space and all this stuff. And, from my first experience with it at the age of 10, I knew there was a problem because I could see the dot on the blackboard. So if it didn't exist, how come I could see it, right? So I already had an issue. Then the teacher stuck a bunch of dots together and made a line and said, that's dimension 1, and it doesn't exist either because it's made out of dots that don't exist. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go with this, but I'm seeing that line. So and then the teacher put these 4 lines together and made a plane and called it dimension 2. And said that dimension doesn't exist either, it still doesn't have volume, and that's the dimension that your comic strips lives in. And, I could see all the other kids were really, disappointed that their comic book didn't exist, and I was getting more and more confused. But the confusion reached a crescendo when he got to the next dimension. Because then he put 6 of these non-existing planes together to make a cube, and said that cube in closed space has volume, and that is 3D, and that's the dimension you exist in. And now I just couldn't go with that. I mean, I could go with the rest, but I just couldn't go with the idea that a dot that didn't exist made a line that didn't exist, that made a plane that didn't exist, and all of a sudden you slap 6 non-existing planes together, you don't get to enclose nothing, right? And so what you got at the end of this axiom is, you know, a non-existing cube which generates, you know, non-existence to the 4th, not existence. And so I knew at that moment that there was some fundamental error in our concepts of dimensions. And these concepts of dimensions sneak in everywhere. What I'm saying to you is that the concept of, for instance, a 2D surface is a mental construct of humans. It has absolutely nothing to do with reality. There is nothing in reality that has no volume. You know, if you shrink yourself to the atomic level, you'll still see volume. There's still, you know, dynamic, volumic structure to the vacuum. There is nothing in the universe that we could point at that says that is a Euclidean flat space that has no volume, right? So it's a concept of man that we take and then we apply to the universe. Well, if you do that, at that fundamental level of your physics and your math, most likely what you're going to end up with is going to have some serious deficiencies. And you start to see that in advanced physics where, for instance, when we solve universal size and universal dynamics with Einstein field equation, we just happen to be missing 96 to 98% of mass that's supposed to be out there. Right. So you have an equation that only predicts 4% of what's out there. And the assumption is not that the equation is wrong, is that we're missing stuff, so they just added dark matter and dark energy in there. My assumption is that the equation is wrong. But let's not get too far down with that hole right now. So basically, if you've got so when I walked out of that class, you know, I managed not to get kicked out of that room that day because I didn't ask questions, but I had this long bus ride back home. It was like an hour and a half, 2-hour bus ride. It was just epic because I kept on getting kicked out of the schools closer to my home. And I said that in a talk once to a physics community, and one of the physicists told me I was furthering my education that way. And it's true because I had all this time to think, and I was in this bus and I was just, you know, and I had to figure this out. And my goal became during that bus ride, you got to figure out dimensions before you get out of this bus. You know, I didn't want to live another minute without understanding, you know, the dimension we're in. And I didn't know that this issue with dimension had been pointed out by philosophers till time began, and you know, that like people had worked on this, you know, for eons and so on. I didn't know all that. I just knew I wanted to solve it. And so the bus kept on getting fuller and fuller with people, and it got hotter and hotter, and I was uncomfortable. So I closed my eyes so I, you know, kind of could escape. And you know, when I closed my eyes, I kind of, in my mind's eye, I thought if I want to figure out dimension, maybe I should like try to visualize larger scales. So I escaped the bus in my mind's eye and rose above the bus. And as I rose up, I saw the bus slowly becoming a dot. And then I rose up further and I saw the Earth becoming a dot. And then I rose up further and I saw the solar system becoming a dot. And then I rose up further and I saw the galaxy becoming a dot. And I had this moment of epiphany, like, maybe it's all dots. And then I just flew back in, and you know, in the galaxy, I found the solar system, found the Earth, found the bus, jumped back in, and then I opened my eyes and I looked at my hand and I closed my eyes again. I said, what about what's smaller? So I closed my eyes and with my mind's eye, I went into my hand and into the cells of my hand, and I saw that they were dots. You know, I didn't know